We've worked with 3 types of data so far, and the next step is to take a look at a 5th type of data that we've just touched on but really haven't talked about in detail. Now, the 3 types of data that we've worked with so far. First type is an integer. This would be a number like 3, 4, 5. As long as it doesn't have a decimal fractional type of value, then what we're working with would be an integer, including negative numbers or the number 0. Also, floating point numbers. This would be any number with a floating point in it, and that does include 2.0 and 2 point as well. Even though this is an even integer type of value, the fact that it has a decimal in it causes the computer to treat it as a floating point value. So we've got integers, we've got floating point. We also have strings. Strings are what we use to store text in. We've got integers, floating point, strings, and the other type of data is a Boolean type of data. This would be either a true or a false value. Keep in mind that the F needs to be capitalized. If the F is not capitalized, the computer has no idea what you're talking about. And if you put quotes around it, it's considered a string, not a Boolean value. Likewise, with numbers, the number 2 with quotes around it is considered a string and not an integer. The other type of data that we have used, and we're going to use a lot more of now, are lists. Anything that has those square brackets around it, like what we've used, particularly in working with graphics so far, it's a list. And there's another type of list called a tuple, where instead of using square brackets, you use rounded parentheses. How do you create a list? Easy enough. We've done something similar. And you use a list when you want to store multiple values in one variable. For instance, I can store 2 into x, and then if I print x, I'm going to get, just like you'd expect, a 2 back. If I set x equal to 3, and then I print x again, I'm not going to get 2 and 3. The 2 is going to go away, never to return, and I'm left with the number 3. If I want to store both a 2 and a 3, I can use square brackets in order to make a list. And then if I print x, I'm going to get both the 2 and 3. If I go back and assign 2 to x, I don't get 2, 3, 2. X is simply going to be exactly what I told the computer it would be, x equals 2. So x is equal to 2. What if I've got 2 numbers like this, and I only want to print the first number or the second number? You can do that by using what's called an index. This, starting at 0, will count each element of the array. So let's get a longer list here. The array that I've created right here, this is a pointer to the array, sometimes also known as a handle. This is the array right here. It starts, and the array is numbered so that you can pull or set any element out of the list by using its array index, which is a number starting at 0. Of course, not starting at 1, right? That would be too easy. And going from there. If I want to set the 6, I would use array element 8. If I want to set this one right here, I would use array element 4. And if I set this element right here, I would want to set array element 0. How many elements are in this list right now? There are 9 elements. Important to remember, you cannot set array element 9 in a 9-element list because a 9-element list is numbered from 0 to 8. There is no element 9 in a 9-element list, as counterintuitive as that might seem. So I can print x specifically x0, and I'm going to get the 6. I can print element 0, 1, 2, 3. This will print the 4th element. So if you want to print the first element, you print x of 0. If you want to print the 3rd element, you print x3. If you want to print both the 0 and the x element, this might seem like the way to do it, but it's not. If you want to print 2 different elements, then you actually need to do x0 and x3. Note that you need to restate x here, both here and here. You can't just use this array index. Again, it will not assume that you're still talking about x. It'll wonder about which element you're talking about. Even though you just finished talking about this list, it won't assume that. You'll need to restate it whenever you use it. You can set elements like the following. And now I can print x. I can see that first element has switched to 22. I can set element 3 to 103. And now the 4th element, because I started counting at 0, has been set to 103. A little trick you can use is that you could actually set array element -1. Which element will this set? Well, now if I print it, you can see that -1 sets the last element. If I were to set -2, it set the second to last element, and so forth. Most languages will not allow you to do this. This is something that is somewhat unique to Python. So far we've worked with lists with square brackets. We can also work with tuples, and to do that, all you need to use are rounded parentheses. And for the most part, these work just like lists. I can print x, and I get both 3 and 4. I can print x of 0, and it will print just the 3. But what I cannot do is set a particular element. So I can't set x of 0 equal to 3. If you use rounded parentheses, once you create that list cannot change. You cannot add elements, you cannot remove elements, and you cannot change individual elements in that list. It is handy when you have a list that shouldn't change, such as a list of 3 items for a color, so you might leave that as a tuple. Also, the computer can do certain optimizations on a list if it knows the elements won't change that it cannot do with a list where the elements might change.